Let's talk Microsoft Access. Before we can really get into Access, we need to understand what a database is. A database is a collection of data or information stored in a computer system. A database management system is a software package designed to define, manipulate, retrieve, and manage data in a database. Databases allow users to enter, access, and analyze data quickly and easily. The easiest way to understand a database is to think of it as a collection of lists. Let's think about a doctor's office. What list would be contained in a database that a doctor's office might have? You would probably have a list of patient names, a list of past appointments, a list with medical history for each patient, a list of contact information, and it would just go on and on. So what is Microsoft Access? Well, Microsoft Access is a database management system. It provides a quick and easy way to develop databases, and it's really well suited for individuals and small businesses, mainly because they're not going to have a large amount of data. Access is probably one of the most popular desktop databases on the market. Now, Access does have its limits. Large corporations, organizations, or just those businesses that has large, massive amounts of data would need a more sophisticated system, such as an SQL server. If you find databases exciting or you decide to pursue this further, this is something you will get into. So let's review. A database is a program that lets you store, organize, and manipulate data. It's a collection of related tables, so you would have multiple lists that you relate to each other. Access is a relational database. The data you are collecting is related across a series of tables. The tables are connected using a piece of shared data, a primary key. Relational databases are great for any set of data that will contain a bunch of redundant information. What? Okay, you're just going to use Excel. I can hear you saying that already. But let's take a look at some data that is stored in Excel. Here is a list of information that is in an Excel spreadsheet. So we're tracking continuing education for employees at an organization. And you can see we have an employee ID, we have the employee's first and last name, and then what training session they took, how many hours it was, the training date, what department the employee was in, and then we probably should have the phone number for the employee, who was the instructor, and what location was this training at. This list goes on and on. It's getting pretty large. So just think if you had hundreds of employees and they were taking multiple classes, you would start to have some redundant information. So we can see that Mary has taken a lot of classes, Renee, Donna, all this redundant information because I have the employee's name entered more than once, which means I'd have their phone number entered more than once. I'm probably going to have the instructor entered more than once. And this spreadsheet is going to get very large. Think about Front Range Community College and the amount of students that are enrolled there. And think about all the classes they are taking. If we had to keep all of that data in a spreadsheet, wouldn't it become really awkward to use that spreadsheet, not just to enter data, but to have to extract data? So how do you decide if you want to use Excel or Access? Excel is really for data analysis, while Access is for data management. And there's a lot of times you're going to use these in conjunction with each other. You'll export data from Access so you can analyze it in Excel. Excel is more useful when you need to crunch numbers, while Access is better when you have to manage a lot of data that's either non-numeric or it's relational in some way. Excel is a flat database that contains a single table of data. Yes, you can have multiple spreadsheets within a workbook, but each spreadsheet, you can't relate them. You can create formulas that will talk to each spreadsheet, but they're not related to each other. Access is a relational database and can contain multiple tables of data that relate to each other through certain key fields called a primary key. You're going to see this term quite a bit, relational and primary key. What should you look for in your data to see if you really should use Access? Do you have a lot of repeated data? Do you have just a lot of data, period? Is your data mostly text? Do you need reports, which means something that you're going to print out? And do you need multiple people to access the database at the same time? If your answer is yes to any of these, then you need to transition to a relational database. Let's talk now about the different parts of an Access database. You have four main objects: tables, queries, forms, and reports. Tables is the main part of a database. You can't have a database without tables. Tables is what you store your data in, and it looks very similar to an Excel spreadsheet. Queries is when you want to look up data. You want to pull out some data from your database, so you query it. Forms is what's going to display on the screen. And reports is something that you're going to print out. So let's take a moment to actually open up Access and see what that looks like. I'm going to open Access, and I already have it on my Start menu. I'm going to choose a blank database, and notice you do have many templates you could choose from, just like with all the other Microsoft programs. With Access, right off the bat, it's asking you to name your database. So I'm going to create just database 1. I think I'll just go with the default name. And I'm going to change this to my desktop so I can easily delete it later. And now I'm going to go ahead and create that database. Now the first thing that opens up is a table. By default, with Access 2019, this is how it's going to open up, because you can't have a database without a table. Notice how the table does look like a spreadsheet a little bit, but how we enter data is going to be a little different. Now let's look at the different objects that we have. We have tables, queries, forms, and reports. So everything that we have in Access, we have to create. I'd have to go to Create and actually create a query. I could create a table, create a form, create a report. So it's not something I can't just click in here and, well, I could just start typing, but it's structured a little bit differently. So it's not as intuitive as Word and Excel or even PowerPoint. Okay, so that's what Access is going to look like. When you get into your MindTap projects, it's already going to have parts of a table started for you. So you're not starting from scratch with this. So how would it look if we took that data that we looked at in Excel and we were to put it into an Access database? Well, we'd have the exact same information, but we would divide it into smaller tables or smaller lists. And we would keep the information in that list, something that was similar to each other. Like we have employee, we'd have their last name, first name, what department, maybe we'd have their phone number in this one table. Then for the training, we'd have the training title and the hours. Then for the instructor, we would have their name. And for the location, we would have a room number and maybe the capacity of that room. So you see, we take all this information and we divide it out. And then we would relate these tables to each other. So when we look at a table, again, it looks very similar to an Excel spreadsheet, but instead of columns, those are fields. And instead of rows, those are records. Now again, this is going to start making sense once you actually get into Access and do one of the projects. So what do we do with all those tables? If I have 3 tables and I need to relate those tables to each other, then I'm going to use a primary key to relate those tables. If they're not related to each other, then they're just these standalone tables. So let me go back to this one here. Let's say I wanted to query, I wanted to ask the database what employee took what training. If these 2 tables were not related, it would be much harder for me to pull that data out. If I relate these 2 tables together, then I can say what employee took what training. So again, this is all going to make sense as we get going. It's going to be time for you to do the Access Module 1 SAM training and the MindTap project. And I have created a video for the first project. I'm going to walk you through that one. Okay, have a go at it.